For today's quiz, we have a loop that's connected to a track. The ball can rotate around this loop if I give it sufficient energy to get started. Our question is, if we were to cut off the top of this or put some kind of derailleur on there, could we have the ball make it around even if we were missing the top part of the rail and or there was a derailleur on there? That's our question. This is what it looks like in quiz form. I'll hold that up for you. As always, mark your answer and your points of confidence. All right, let's show you what this thing can do first of all. I'll release this so it goes quick enough that you'll be able to see the ball go around the loop. It goes around the loop, and if it goes high enough, it'll come back around and go back up. What we're going to do now is we're going to put a derailleur on here. I'll just put something like this on here, pull this to the other side, and now I'll use maybe a wooden ball. I don't want to, these big steel balls, if they get derailed and they come down and hit, they can dent this. So let me grab a wooden ball. And I'll just release it from this side and see if the derailleur knocks it off. It'll knock it right off. So what we need to do is figure out how to get this ball so that it'll come along and simply miss the derailleur. That's the work that we're going to need to do. And students and teachers probably going to have to do a little bit of theoretical work first. We'll come back to this. Typical student responses to this quiz is that, no, we cannot do this. You haven't given us any information. On the picture, you said that this was 30 centimeters across. That's it. Nothing else. You haven't given us the mass of the ball, the velocity, nothing. So the answer that we normally get is, no, this is impossible to do. But this is the essence of physics. Building students up to where they can say, this is an insurmountable challenge, but I know that I'm going to keep on going. This is really for my second level physics course. They've already been trained to keep going. So we're going to try to keep going. We're going to have to do our theoretical work at this point. Whenever you're going to do theoretical work, the hardest part is usually getting the drawing. Once you get the drawing, then you can start to think about what is the best tool for the job. In this particular case, probably energy. Energy is going to end up helping us solve this. Trying to figure out what we really want to know. And so students are going to struggle with this, and they're going to think, well, I need to know something about the velocity. And so most students will go in this direction. They could say, well, I can figure out the velocity down here, which they can. The hard part is recognizing I don't really need to know the velocity there. I need to know it up there. But they can often get started with energy before equals energy after, a little conservation of energy. So maybe we'll just draw that down here as a little line. And I can say, maybe starting up here, my energy before must equal my energy after. So we'll start there. We certainly know that this has got energy of height, so we can say this is going to be potential energy. So I'll put potential energy over here must be converted as it rolls down. It's rolling, so we're going to have rotational energy, but we're also going to be going somewhere, and that's going to be our kinetic energy. So I'll put, we're going to end up having some kinetic energy, KE, and we're also going to end up having some rotational energy here. Now, rotational energy is going to be just like our kinetic energy, which is 1/2 mv squared. Let's put that in here. So I've got my 1/2, my mass, velocity squared. Our rotational analogs are going to be 1/2 I omega squared. And of course, potential energy is just going to be our mgh. From there, we can end up saying, well, I need to get all of these letters to start corresponding with one another. So if I have a ball is going to end up having a moment of inertia that happens to be 2/5 mr squared. So let's start with a where statement, where I of a ball equals 2/5 mr squared. So I could put that in for I. At the same time, I know that I can get V and omega to speak together, because we can say, and we could say velocity tangential equals r omega. But we want to make omega into V, so maybe I'll take this a step further and say, or I could say my omega equals my velocity all over my radius. But that's going to be a squared term, so maybe I'll square both sides. Squared, 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 like so. So now if I could populate that formula, I can end up with my m, my g, and my h equaling 1/2 my mass, my velocity squared, plus, now I got to put my 2/5 mr squared in there. So I still have this 1/2 right there, and then I've got 2/5 mr squared from right here for I. And omega squared, I could put my v squared. And all of that is going to be over my r squared. Now, this is the fun part. And students like this because they can see, oh, wait, right away, I can see that a lot of things are going to go away. And this big complicated formula turns out to be pretty simple. Maybe not the first time you go through it, but after you see it a couple times, you start to get it. You say, well, look, there's an m right here, and there's an m here on both sides. There's an m. They cross out. So the m's are gone. And what does that mean? Well, it means I don't need to know the size of the ball. I don't need to know the mass of it. Mass is irrelevant. So if I used a large ball or a small ball, I should say a more massive ball or a less massive ball, the consequences are going to be the same. And that is great news for solving a problem like this. Let's see if we can clean this up a little bit more. Our m's are gone. Oh, but look, we have an r squared and there's an r squared there. So they also go away. And I'm left with GH equaling 1/2 our v squared plus 1 times 2 on top is going to end up being 2 all over 10, and that's going to be v squared. So we also don't need to know the radius of the ball. The radius of the ball is irrelevant. Big, small, big ball, a small ball, heavy ball, light ball, they're all going to work exactly the same. So I can very quickly end up taking my fraction of 1/2 and 2/10, and I can find the least common denominator, which is 10 here. So I could say GH equals, and I could say that's 5 all over 10 v squared plus my 2 all over 10 v squared. Well, if I have two things that are alike, I can just add them together. And so that's just 7/10. So I can say 7 all over 10 v squared equals my GH. Another way to put that is just 0.7 v squared. Maybe we'll leave it like that. Not bad. But this is where students get stuck. They get to this point and they're like, okay, I know gravity. I need to figure out the height. I need to know v for that. I've got my 0.7 or 7/10 here. And this is where you have to go back and think, what am I actually asking here? In other words, a ball's coming down, and if it were to come down at some height, I'll know its velocity. But remember, we want to know up in this region, up here. So in other words, if the ball is down here, let's make it about the same size. So if I had the ball there, the ball is going to come down, but it's going to go back up. Remember, it's going to end up, we have a radius, by the way. Radius equal to 0.15 meters because the diameter was 30 centimeters. So I cut that in half. But you need to ask yourself, all right, what else do I need to know to solve this? See, right now, if the ball were right here off to the side, what's causing it to go around this circle? And most students will think right away, wait, down here, I know that the track or the ground is pushing back up on it, causing it to go into a circle. And if you can start to speak out loud about what it's doing, oh, it's going in a circle, then we think for things to go in a circle, we must have some kind of force pushing in. So in this case, we could think of having some kind of force pushing in. In this case, it happens to be the track. The track is supplying our force centripetal to get it to go around in a circle. And right here, we could say that's being supplied by our force normal. In other words, the track is pushing this in. Keep thinking this way. Now remember, on the original diagram, I didn't have the track up here. So we can either put a derailleur on, or we could just say, all right, at what point is the track no longer touching the ball? Just keep talking to yourself. Talk through this, because up here is really what we want to find out. It's about that size of a ball right there. And notice, I don't have it touching the track at this point. There's a little gap there. But it's still going to be going around in a circle. What could possibly be causing it to go around in a circle? What is pushing it in? Well, at the very top there, which is the part that we're interested in, we could say, well, it still has a force centripetal being supplied by the force of gravity. And once they get that, they can say, wait, another name for force centripetal equaling the force of gravity is force centripetal equaling the weight. And that's really what we need here. Because once I have that formula and that formula, now I can start to take this, and maybe I'll expand this off to the side. Let me just take this picture here and expand it. So I now have my circle here. I've got my ball here. I'm expanding it a little bit, and I can say my force centripetal equals my weight. Weight, I know. Weight is going to equal our mass times our gravity. In force centripetal, this is where you need to think. Look, I need to figure and strategize. How am I going to end up getting the height here? I need something about the velocity. Remember, I'm stuck on velocity right here. The velocity right here. How fast does it need to be going right here? I need velocity. So you think, in force centripetal, do I have a formula that has velocity in it? And the answer is, we do. And that's going to be our mv squared all over our r. So now we're working on this formula so we can end up coming back to here. Right away, you should be cheering because, look, that mass and that mass cross out. Now remember, this is all going to look very easy once we're done, but it's going to take a while. Often it might take an hour for students to grind through this. Totally fine. I can now say my v squared equals my r and my g. And that is what we are looking for right here. If your students can see that, if you can see that, then you know I can take this and just finish it off. I could say g h equals 0.7, and v squared is really now equal to rg. Excitement again because gravities cross out. And all I need to do is say my height is equal to 0.7 of our 15 centimeters, or meters. Let's put meters, 0.15 meters. And therefore that height equals 10.5 meters. The real question now is, where is that height? Well, where were we looking for the velocity? We're looking at the velocity right there. So we need to end up saying our height is actually going to be right here. From this component, our height needs to go from here at the top of the loop. And, you know, I can either go to the top of the ball or the bottom of the ball or center of mass of the ball, but let me just draw it like this for right now. I'll just do from top to top. I think I'd rather use bottom to bottom, but, and then I could say, well, that right there is my height. That's what I need to do. I need to end up getting 10.5 meters above this diameter of 30, which is going to end up being, 0.7 times 0.15. .105. Yeah, 10.5. Yeah, so we were right. So we can add that onto our 30. Now, we have to remember we've got a little bit of extra on top of that tabletop because the actual tubing is going to be a centimeter or so. So we can end up putting that on there. So that's our value. All right, we've done our calculation and we calculated 10.5. Top of the hoop is already 30, so we'll add 10.5 to that. So I'll go to about 40.5, which is about right here. And then we forgot to take the little extra bit of the metal tube itself. So let's add another centimeter. So we're going to be about right here. I'll get out of your way and let's give this a try. And it works. And it works really well on the first try. Pretty amazing. All right, let's show you that in real time, and then we'll do it in slow motion. Now that we've seen that we can have a ball make it around, could you possibly have a more exciting ride where one is going to be coming down, another is going to be coming down at the same time? And could they pass in the air? And if you get the timing just right, you can, as I'm going to show you. This type of problem is the essence of mechanics and mechanical engineering. It really highlights what fun you can have while learning. So that's your quiz for today.